everybody, namaste. So I'm bringing a video because I'm only in Montreal for a day before we go off whale watching, and it's such a beautiful sunny day. All of a sudden there was an intense thunder and lightning storm throughout the night, which cleanses, and now this morning has led to an afternoon of beautiful sunshine. So I'm doing a video on a bit darker subject, so I wanted to do it in the sunlight. And again, peace. But I'll take off my hat so that it can be as bright as possible. I've been fascinated recently with, well, not just recently, in general, with Jim Morrison and his dark existence, his dark, short-lived existence. And so I like to incorporate meaningful music into my videos that have a message, and then I sort of relate that message to the transformation process that we go through in a practice of yoga, like doing the Dr. Bali session, which is to help heal from trauma and work with our neuroplasticity, to believe in the fact that we can heal our neural pathways and that we can retell our stories in a more positive light as far as things that we have experienced. We can reframe them, and a lot of this comes with personal responsibility and soul evolution, like I've been talking about, where just we understand that everybody that comes into our life comes in for a purpose, and not to feel like a victim to that person, but to understand that that person and you have issues to work through on a soul level, in order to balance karma, neutralize karma, or move on from karmic ties. So these types of relationships are always difficult to understand and work through unless we have some sort of self-introspection going on, where we just take the time to recognize why things are happening in our lives the way they are. And giving it up to a divine purpose in our soul's evolution. And then we are just undoubtedly grateful to the people that come into our lives for no matter what experience, but we take what we can from that experience to recognize that we can get through things, and that those experiences end up being our greatest source of wisdom, as far as taking what we've learned through life and then applying it towards the future as lessons not to be repeated. So Jim Morrison was a poet and identified more with the poet in himself than the rock star. And he disassociated from his parents because they were quite authoritarian, and so his message wasn't to cause a massive revolution. His message was to cause an internal revolution towards anti-authority, which I find is a little bit like my message. As far as power struggles and dominant, submissive, narcissist, empath energies work with each other, and how to work through them to come to a balanced place of energies, where we embrace the darkness from our past and our lives and our past lives. And we look at it and we recognize what can we learn from that to evolve, and that brings it into the light, to the sunlight, which is often what I do when I sit in the sun as I absorb the energy, and it sheds light on many issues in my journey, in my life, and it inspires me, also giving me energy and helping raise my vibration. So I'm transmuting the negativity into the light. And this is a practice we all have to do for ourselves. We can try to find a healer that can help us through the process. And maybe in the description box below I'll mention a few personal healers that I've been to that have helped me greatly in this. But my message here is that we can do it on our own through a practice like the Dr. Bali. We're rewiring our neural pathways. So I'm going to play this song, Riders on the Storm, which I've been studying lately. And he had a girlfriend that lived about 300 miles away at a certain point after his stardom, and he would go back and forth. Actually, maybe it was before he was a really big star. He would hitchhike back and forth on this particular highway in the desert, and he came to identify as the archetype of the hitchhiker, which is the seeker, the wanderer, the one that isn't afraid to enter into the unknown, into the mysteries. And he would say that he would wreak havoc along these journeys, and sometimes we do. But I'm relating because I go back and forth from my hometown to Montreal often, and that journey of that time in between of the 6-hour road trip is always so cathartic and so transformative when I get from one side to the other. So I could really relate with the archetype of the wanderer and the hitchhiker as we search and search until we find the answers within ourselves. Because he had cut ties from his parents, he didn't really have anybody looking out for him or really enforcing anything, so he drank a lot of alcohol. And I could also relate to that after of my first demolition of my relationship with my first son's father, and I had nobody for the first time dominating or controlling me. I let myself indulge. But here we see in Jim Morrison the detrimental effect that the lens of alcohol gives us, the distorted perception. And the way that they wrote their music was just so amazing because they did the keyboards really creepily and low bass, so it's a very dark ambiance. And then the guitar, electric guitar, echoed that. And then he sings the lyrics about the wanderer, the wandering spirit. Also, he really related to, at the time there was a murderer on the loose in the desert in that area. Desert on the run, murder on the loose. And also to the relationship he was in, going back and forth to, considering that as a cosmic relationship where this woman who he was going to visit was unleashing the secrets of the universe onto him. So he was really relating to that, give a man a bone, give a dog a bone, teach me the secrets. He was very open to learning the mysteries, and so there's lots of different meanings encased in this song, lots of different layers. He sings the lyrics normally, and then he re-records a whispering of the lyrics over top of that track. So there's the conscious and subconscious feeling to it, which is very eerie, but works very much as far as how we could say the dark is our subconscious because we don't really realize our subconscious unless we consciously look at it, which is the shedding light on the darkness. We store a lot of painful memories in our subconscious, and these can come out in our dreams or come out in our everyday life or come out like him. He had an allergic reaction to alcohol, which was a condition that would make him black out and not understand or remember his behavior. His behavior was always in that, on stage, bad. And he really wouldn't remember them, so he had a big disassociation happening between his conscious and subconscious realities. And he loved to play around in the dark recesses of his mind as a poet. He played with his very dark emotions. He wrote them down, he brought them to the surface. He wasn't afraid of that, and I find that really inspiring as far as having access to your own personal truth, not being afraid to not follow the crowd, to eventually, like Dr. Bali would say, unleash the conditioning that we've attained over our lives from our teachers, preachers, and parents. and how we were raised in their model and not necessarily to be free in our own. So we rebel against that authority in taking off the layers, peeling off the layers in yoga philosophy. And so the doors of perception can shift once we sit in a practice where we're actually changing our state of consciousness. And this is what the doors, named after the doors of perception, the Adolf Huxley book, really so much to be uncovered there about masculine perceptions, addiction, alcohol abuse, so many topics covered in all of this. But I'm just going to do a practice to the song, sharing with you my inspiration, because we really do have to retell ourselves our stories and make light of them and make sense of them and not necessarily get swallowed up in the darkness of them, but to then have gratitude for everybody and everything that has come into our lives. So it's a 7-minute song. We'll do it a little bit slower, the Dr. Bali Method. We'll just lie flat, enter the peace of it, and really feel the ambiance of this music. Start on the left.
Riders on the storm. Into this house we're born. Into this world we're thrown. Like a dog without a bone, and half we're out alone. Riders on the storm.
We're doing rotations of 6 just to have it be a longer practice.
His brain is squirming like a toad. Take a long holiday. Let your children play. If you give this man a ride, sweet family will die. Killer on the road. Yeah.
Come to center, exhale as you go down 45 degrees. Inhaling in.
Girl, you gotta love your man.
And twist.
Girl, you gotta love your man. Take him by the hand. Make him understand.
Same thing on the right.
The
Rotations of
world
6.
on you depends. Our life will never end. Gotta love your man. Yeah.
back to center. Both legs at once. You can put your hands under your bum.
Riders on the storm. Riders on the storm. Into this house we're born. Into this world with dawn. Like a dog without a bone and after out unknown. Riders on the storm.
So there's noise. We meditate through it. Walking up into the shoulders down.
Riders on the storm. Riders on the storm.
What is it?
Riders on the storm. Riders on the storm.
Twists. Side bridge. I'll finish off in bridge. Just take a minute and Savasana. So I guess I'm just really passionate lately to talk about things that are kept hidden in our subconscious. As we do this practice, we unravel and we bring the subconscious up to the surface, and we work through the traumas, and we retell our stories, and we come back into the light. And the process isn't always easy, especially if we've experienced trauma in such a way where our souls sort of detach from our bodies. And this happens in extreme trauma where our soul would rather not be living what it's living. So it can tether off and have this perspective of above, and these can be a sort of out-of-body experience. This feeling, once this detachment can happen, it's really very nice and wonderful feeling up out of your body. And so it can become really difficult to come back into it. And a lot of people that have NDEs or near-death experiences that experience the light or the piercing of the veil or a detachment of your soul from your physical body, it's really hard to come back into the physical body. And so we block the memory of it, and yet that ability starts to happen without us being aware of it. So we detach often, and we can sometimes become just the observer in our lives which is good, and we can have a bigger perspective, which is what we're aiming for. But we're really trying to unify our soul and really have it anchor into our bodies and into our hearts, and welcome it back and honor it. So when we start to live in our truth and our soul descends and wants to be inside of us, we no longer need that escape so much, and we become more comfortable in our body, and then we don't need the masks even. Now we can have particular journeys where we can have this perspective or switch of consciousness to retell our stories, such as through the Bali Method, entering the Theta state, which is a safe space so that these memories can rise up to the surface, into the light, and we can heal them, and not just get buried in the darkness. And then the merging of the soul and the body can happen. And the darkness shows us exactly how strong we can be by getting over it, and then discussing issues of mental health, this feeling of bipolar, this feeling of up and down. All of this can be balanced out with a regular Dr. Bali yoga session practice. So that's why I bring it to you and I talk about it so much. And I just want to wish everyone love and light. And these are hard times, especially because of the energy bombarding the earth at the moment, and I think we are all sort of discovering a bit more of our psychic abilities. We're opening channels and we're getting perhaps messages, and this can be scary at first. And if anyone is having any sort of impressions that they're unsure of and want to talk to me about it, please reach out, because I've studied so much about this, and it's really a passion of mine to talk about it. Because once we open channels, we can become inspired to our guides and our spirit team, and just sort of know which way to go in such an easier fashion than all of these guessing games or monkey minds or overanalyzing, which is actually pretty toxic, negative behavior. So we do a Dr. Bali session and enter the light. Even bringing the darkness to light is a lifelong work, a lifelong practice of healing. But joy and peace and balance and feeling really our soul back in our bodies is the ultimate goal, because that's where we find the most peace. And the last video I did, I said peace on instead of peace out, and I really liked that actually expression, peace on. Let's keep the peace on. But peace out.